Hello and welcome everyone on this official platform of Legacy IAS Academy. So today in this session, I am going to discuss the PSIR optional 2025 paper 2. So in last video, we have discussed all the questions from paper 1, that is section A and section B. So today we are going to see as well as analyze the question with respect to paper 2 section A. So let's see what are the type of questions that UPSC has asked in PSIR this time. First of all, there are some general guidelines for the 10 marker questions. See, for 10 marker questions, what you need to do, first you need to understand what is the purpose of the question, and why UPSC is actually asking. So these are basically like if you see question number 1 and then question number 5, these are short notes, short answer question, 10 marks each. So this actually tests your ability to show the conceptual clarity as well as you can recall the key scholars. And if you are able to link it with the contemporary things, then it will be considered as a good answer. Then second important thing, word limit strategy, around 150 words only, where 3 to 4 short paragraphs or structured introduction, body and conclusion should be there. Introduction में क्या होना चाहिए? You can just define the context, within 2 lines. Then body of the answer, core explanation, where you are going to mention the views of the scholars, and then at last conclusion, 1 or 2 line conclusion, or you can mention the critique or linkages, anything. Clear? And the most important thing, try to mention the scholars because this is optional paper, not your GS paper. Okay. Now, first of all, we are going to discuss the questions from paper 2 section A. Now, the first question क्या है? First A part, that is discuss the psychological approach to the study of comparative politics. Again, a straightforward question UPSC has asked in paper 2 also, section A. So, psychological approach in comparative politics. Now, first of all, why this question is asked by UPSC? Why? We need to understand this. So, try to understand. UPSC actually wants to test if you know beyond the institutional or you can say structural functional approaches or not. Basically, this is something which is related to behavioral revolution impact. Behavioral revolution impact. Okay. Now, what should be the approach of this question? तो अब इस क्वेश्चन को अगर हमें लिखना है, so what should be our approach? First, you have to write a wonderful introduction. Now, what you are going to mention in the introduction, first of all, so what you are going to mention? First, you need to define what? Focus on political behavior. Here, your focus should be on political behavior. Now, political behavior, it can be explained via psychology also. It can be explained via psychology. You can mention in this attitude, beliefs, personality, anything. Then you can mention the body of the answer. तो अब यहाँ पर आप कौन-कौन से scholars को mention कर सकते हो? For example, the psychological approach in comparative politics, it examines how individual behavior and cognitive processes influence the political systems. Then here you can mention important scholars, like Graham Wallace, important scholars like Graham Wallace, you can mention about him. Then you can mention about Harold Laswell. These are some important scholars. So this approach actually emphasizes on the role of emotions, perception, personality traits in the political decision making. Clear? So these are the things which you can mention. Then how to write body of the answer. So now how you are going to write the body of the answer? So first of all, in body of the answer, what you are going to mention? Link to the scholars. You have to link with scholars. Scholars like Harold Laswell. Okay, like politics is something who gets what, when, how, with psychological analysis. Then you can also mention about David Easton. David Easton, prominent personality, who talked about political socialization. He talked about political socialization. This you can also mention. Support system. Then you can mention the techniques like surveys. So you can mention techniques like surveys, attitude scales. Then you can mention the criticism, overemphasis on micro level, neglect of institutions like this. And at last, you can conclude your answer. A wonderful conclusion is needed here. Now, how you are going to conclude this answer? So you can mention that it broadened comparative politics but not sufficient standalone. Okay. As Laswell noted, politics is who gets what, when, how. So this actually underscoring the psychological motivations behind the power dynamic. So this is how you can write. Second question. Now what is first question B part? Neoliberalism lightened neorealism's dark view of international politics. Full stop comment. है ना? Now, why this question is asked? First of all, why this question is asked? So, let me tell you, to test your ability to compare two approaches post 1970s. So, this is something which is related to post 1970s and it is related to IR theories. समझ में आ रहा है? It is related to IR theories. Now, what should be the approach? How are you going to write the introduction? है ना, इंट्रोडक्शन कैसे लिखें? तो आप सबसे पहले लिखेंगे नियो रियलिज्म. नाउ whenever we are going to write neo realism, here Walt should be there. Walt should be mentioned. Kenneth Waltz. Clear? Like he talked about anarchic systems, survival, pessimism, all these things you can mention. Then how to write the body of the answer? Now body. This is most important part. So in body of the answer, you can mention about neoliberalism. Now, whenever we are going to write about neoliberalism, Joseph Nye and Keohane, two scholars are very important. Like they said, cooperation possible under anarchy, institution as well as interdependence should be there. Then the most important context that is asked in this question, lightened dark view. Lightened dark view. Now, how you are going to write this? So, neoliberals actually accept that anarchy, they accept anarchy, but they argue absolute gains matter, not just relative gains. Then you can give criticism. Like realists say institutions are epiphenomenal. Clear? And at last you can conclude that still the debate is going on, which shows evolution of IR theory from Cold War pessimism to globalization optimism. This is how you can easily write this answer. Next question. Now, third part, explain the non-traditional security threats in the context of food and environmental crisis. Now, why this question is asked? Because UPSC actually loves current global issues and linked to theory like climate change, food insecurity, all these things. So this actually tests if you move beyond the military security or not. Then how you are going to write the introduction, how to approach. So how will you write introduction? A wonderful introduction. So first you have to define non-traditional security threat. Define non-traditional security threats. Now, this actually challenges beyond state. That means beyond state-centric military threats. And non-traditional security threats encompasses challenges like food, environmental crisis, as well as which transcend national borders, and that requires global cooperation. So here you can mention about Homer-Dixon model. This is very important, Homer-Dixon model. है ना? Then you can also mention about United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization and their report that around 820 million people, they face hunger. Similarly, you can mention about environmental degradation, which is exacerbated by the climate change poses. So all these things you can mention easily here. Okay. Then in body of the answer, what are the things that you are going to mention? First, you can mention about FAO reports, है ना, food security. Then you can mention about Amartya Sen's entitlement approach, है ना, Amartya Sen entitlement approach. Okay. Then you can mention about climate change, Paris Agreement, all these things. Then you can link it to human security, like UNDP report of 1994, है ना, that you can mention. Then contemporary issues you can mention like Ukraine war, food supply chains, 2025 climate disasters, all these things you can mention, contemporary event. Then at last you can write a wonderful conclusion. Okay, so this is something which is very important, where you should actually mention about the contemporary events. Then next question, discuss the political socialization of open and closed society. Now why? First of all, it actually tests the ability to connect political culture. It is something which is related to political culture. When we talk about political culture, two important scholars you have to mention, Almond and Verba. Almond, Verba. These two scholars. है ना? That means authoritarian versus democratic context. Now, how you are going to approach this question? अब आप इस क्वेश्चन को कैसे अप्रोच करेंगे? फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल डिफाइन, इंट्रोडक्शन में क्या लिखेंगे? इंट्रोडक्शन, define political socialization. Now first you have to define the political socialization. That is, it is a process of transmitting political values as well as norms. Then body of the answer. Body कैसे लिखेंगे? Here first you have to mention about open societies. ठीक है? Now open societies, pluralism, multiple agents are there. Pluralism, multiple agents are there, like media, civil society, education. Here you can mention these scholars, Almond, Verba. These two scholars you can mention here. Okay. Then you can mention about closed societies. Closed societies, which is very important, authoritarian in nature, restricted information like USSR and China. Then you can mention about Easton's, David Easton, input output mode. You can draw the diagram also. Clear? At last you can conclude your answer like socialization determines the regime stability as well as democratic deepening. Now first question, last part in first, comment on red lipstick movement in the context of feminist right. This question is something which is related to current affairs. Let me tell you, ये current से related है, current affairs. As you can see here, there was one news article on 5th February this year, what is red lipstick movement and why it is trending. है ना, इट इज ऑन टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया में आर्टिकल था इसका। तो रेड लिपस्टिक मूवमेंट क्या है बेसिकली, it is this movement is a symbolic and assertive form of feminist protest which actually represents the women's resistance against the patriarchal control, as well as they are championing the autonomy, confidence, as well as right to self expression. Now then you can mention about historical roots also in this movement, है ना। तो अब historical roots आप इसके mention कर सकते हैं। historical roots कैसे, like for example red lipstick became a visual marker for the suffragettes, है ना, who are fighting for the right to vote in the early 20th century. So likewise you can mention about these things, clear। and जो आज का red lipstick movement है, that actually continues to surface during periods of political dissent as well as protest. That is why the movement was started this year, and this year it was there in the news also. Now, why UPSC asked this question? A question on this red lipstick movement in political science actually, for so it is actually designed to you can say test the students' grasp of feminist theory, the symbolism in the social movements and interplay of gender, power as well as protest. है ना? You can use the contemporary as well as historical example. So that is the relevance of this question. So first of all, you need to understand that this question is related to current affairs, and the directive here is comment. Comment जब भी दिया होगा, that means you have to give a critical and balanced discussion with analysis. That means not just the factual narration. So first you can introduce your answer, है ना। So you have to write a wonderful introduction. Introduction कैसे लिखेंगे? Briefly you have to define the red lipstick movement as a form of feminist resistance. Form of feminist resistance. You can mention these things. Body में कैसे लिख सकते हो? How you are going to write the body of the answer, है ना। So in body first you can give the historical perspective. You can mention suffragette usage, है ना, suffragette uses in the early 20th century, World War II, then opposition to fascism. Then you can give the contemporary context. Contemporary context. Contemporary context, you have to show how women and even men, they use red lipstick in protest, as well as social media as a visible defiance in societies, then in societies actually policing women bodies. Then you can give the theoretical analysis also. Ab theoretical analysis में you can mention Judith Butler, very important scholar, सभी लोग PSIR में पढ़ते हैं, Judith Butler, है ना, performativity of gender. Then Simon de Beauvoir, all these scholars, that one is not born but rather becomes a woman. Then Rosemary, है ना, Rosemary Tong, varieties of feminism. So these things you can easily give in your answer, clear। And with respect to conclusion, you can link to Indian as well as global context. Okay, link to Indian as well as global context. You can give the recent protests, viral images, cultural adaptation from India as well as globally. Okay, so these things you can mention easily. Now next question, question number 2, that is long question. The world currently has been in the throes of a twin process of democratic backsliding and democratic backlash. How would you explain this paradox? अब सबसे पहली चीज, why this question is asked, UPSC wants to test if you can handle contemporary democratic crisis or not. Like for example, US Capitol riots, है ना, US Capitol riots. Then you can mention about India's democracy debate. Then Hungary Poland debate is there. Those things you can mention with theoretical depth, है ना। So how you are going to approach this? है ना. फर्स्ट थिंग इज इंट्रोडक्शन. अब इंट्रोडक्शन कैसे लिखा जाए in such kind of questions? So first you have to define what? Backsliding. Now what is backsliding? बैकस्लाइडिंग का मतलब होता है जब डेमोक्रेटिक इंस्टीट्यूशन में भरोसा खोने लगते हैं. इरोजन ऑफ डेमोक्रेटिक इंस्टीट्यूशन, है ना. इरोजन ऑफ डेमोक्रेटिक institutions, clear? Civil liberties, rule of law, all these things. Backlash means counter movement, defending democracy. Backlash this is something which is related to counter movements, that is defending democracy, clear? Citizen protest, global advocacy, all these things you can mention. Then how you are going to write the body of the answer? Scholars, here you can mention Levitsky and Ziblatt, how democracies die. Then you can mention about Huntington, third wave, now reverse wave. Then Larry Diamond, democratic recession. Backsliding examples आप दे सकते हैं, Turkey, US, Hungary, है ना, US January 6, India's free speech concerns. Then backlash example, Belarus protest, Myanmar civil disobedience, then global democracy NGOs. All these things you can mention easily. Then you can mention about the paradox, that both the process coexist, but still there is a debate between authoritarian push as well as citizen resistance. Then you can give the critical angle, role of technology, social media, how social media play important role in this, clear? Double edge. So both the things actually enable authoritarianism as well as mobilization, clear? And at last you have to conclude your answer. So democracy is in flux, है ना, but backlash also shows resilience. So it is cyclical rather than linear decline. Now next question, question number 2B. The withdrawal of the United States of America from the World Health Organization is said to have far-reaching impact on global health. Reimagining the existing WHO is vital for global health agenda, full stop, discuss. है ना? Now, why this question is asked? Now, first of all, it is something that you have to connect with IR theories. सबसे पहले तो you have to connect with IR, that is international organization, plus contemporary health crisis. Contemporary health crisis, like for example COVID-19, clear? COVID-19 you can mention. Then you can check if you can evaluate global governance beyond military or economic issues or not. This is the demand of the question. Now how you should approach, है ना? First you have to mention about introduction. You have to write a wonderful introduction. Now what you are going to write introduction in the introduction? That US under first presidency of Trump, US under Trump in 2020. Okay, then you can mention about, so US talked about during the Trump era to come out from most of the global organization, and World Health Organization was one of them. Then Biden reversed the policies of Trump, clear? But credibility crisis remained. Credibility crisis remained. Okay, then how you are going to write the body of the answer? First you have to mention about impact of US exit, like funding loss. US contribute around 15% of WHO budget, and legitimacy crisis will be there. It is going to weaken the global coordination. Then you can mention these scholars like Robert Keohane, importance of international organizations in providing the cooperation. Then Joseph Nee ने क्या कहा था? Soft power loss for US. Then WHO's weakness it is actually politicized, dependent on state funding, then slow pandemic response in COVID crisis, then reimagination. Reimagination, you can mention strengthen autonomy. That means there is a need for independent funding, more power to act early. There is a need for democratized governance like Global South representation. Then you can link this with UN Sustainable Development Goals as well as climate health nexus. So these things you can mention. Last, you have to mention a proper conclusion. You have to write a proper conclusion. Now, how you are going to write the proper conclusion? That global health, है ना? So this global health is actually interdependent. Okay, how? So it is dependent and there is a need for cooperation. Clear? That is why there is a need for reform World Health Organization, and that is essential for the collective security. So this is something which is related to your IR theory, basic concept, that is collective security. Now second question, last part. Transnational actors have qualitatively transformed the world by the way of their fresh insights and actions. Illustrate your answer with suitable example. Now, how you have to write this question? This is the classic IR question. First of all, let me tell you, this is the classic IR question. Okay. How? This is going to test if you know how non-state actors reshape world politics. How non-state actors reshape world politics. Okay. Then how this fits into the globalization, interdependence, then decline of state centrism debates. Now, what should be your approach? So, how you are going to write the introduction? है ना? अब introduction लिखना कैसे? First, you have to define transnational actor. Transnational actor. In this, you can give the definition according to Keohane and Joseph Nee approach. है ना? That these actors operating across the borders, not controlled by states. Then in body of the answer, you can mention about NGOs. There are some NGOs who are working across the border, like Amnesty, Greenpeace, related to human rights and then climate. Then MNCs like Apple, Google, Shell, they actually use economic power as well as political lobbying. Then terror networks, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, security threat. Then epistemic communities like scientific networks, climate, IPCC, all these things. Then you can give various examples like Paris Climate Accord, that actually that was a pressure from civil society. Then you can mention about Ukraine war. That means how role of private actors like SpaceX, Starlink, sanctions by corporations are there. Then humanitarian aid you can mention, like Medicines Sans Frontiers. Then theories you can mention, Keohane and Joseph Nee, complex interdependence. Then Susan Strange, structural power of MNCs के बारे में उन्होंने बात की है. Then at last you can give a wonderful conclusion. Now how you are going to conclude that transnational actors complement. Okay, they complement, they challenge also, as well as sometimes substitute the states also. Clear? That means it cannot understand so we cannot understand international relations without them. Clear? These are the things you can mention in your conclusion. Then third question, part A. It is something related to of late centrist and center left political parties have been facing setbacks while center right parties have been in ascendancy the world over. Comment. Why this question is asked? Basically, they want to see if you can connect comparative politics, that is party system, with current global shifts or not. That is rise of right-wing populism and decline of social democracy. Then how you are going to write the introduction in this kind of question? First, you have to define center लेफ्ट आपको डिफाइन करना है, लाइक सोशल डेमोक्रेट्स, लिबरल्स वर्सेस सेंटर राइट, है ना, कंजर्वेटिव, पॉपुलिस्ट. देन यू कैन मेंशन अबाउट इलेक्शन वोलेटिलिटी, है ना, 21st सेंचुरी में कैसे इलेक्शंस में वोलेटाइल सिचुएशन, दोस थिंग्स यू कैन मेंशन. देन body of the answer, why setbacks for center left? So globalization is weakened welfare states, ये किसने कहा? It's Stiglitz. Then you can mention about decline of working class base, rise of identity politics based on class, है ना, based on race, based on caste, based on religion, etc. Then end of ideology debate, Daniel Bell. Clear? Then you can mention about why rise of center right. So populism, like caste mude, populist radical right. Then anti-immigrant sentiments in Europe and US, strong leaders like Trump, Modi, Orban, all these kind of leaders are there. So rise of right wing or right populism. समझ में आ रहा है? So these are the things. Then you can give the examples, UK labor decline versus conservative stability. Then French socialist decline versus Le Pen's rise. India's Congress versus BJP. These are examples which you can mention in your answer. Then you can mention about counter trends. Recent win of center left in Latin America, है ना, Lula and Boric. Then this shows a cyclical nature even with respect to the ideology. Clear? Then at last you can conclude your answer by saying that the term ascendancy is real, है ना. So how you are going to write the conclusion? That the term ascendancy is real but not uniform. Democracies move in waves. This is said by Huntington, है ना, and like pendulum, they may swing back also. Now third part B, collective security and responsibility to protect are similar but different in scope, goals and method. This is the question which is straightforward in nature, है ना. So basically you have to give the difference here between UN collective security versus, है ना, right to protect. Clear? That is humanitarian intervention norm. Humanitarian intervention. That is right to protect. Okay. So how you are going to write the introduction in this question? Introduction कैसे लिखना है? First you have to define collective security, that is aggression against one is equals to aggression against all. Clear? Aggression against one is equals to aggression against all, and based on this only League of Nations, UN Charter, based on collective security. Then you can define right to protect, है ना, right to protect. Now this concept in 2005 in UN World Summit, UN World Summit. Clear? Then you can mention about body. First you can mention similarities, both are multilateral, peace oriented, dependent on United Nations legitimacy. Then differences, scope of collective security, interstate aggression. Scope of right to protect, mass atrocities within state. Goals, collective security, preserve state system. Goals of right to protect these civilians. Then methods in collective security, military sanction, deterrence. And then method in right to protect, diplomacy, humanitarian aid, last resort intervention. Then here you can mention these scholars like Hedley Bull, belongs to English school, who talked about order versus justice tension. Then Alex Bellamy, most important scholar in right to protect. Clear? Then you can give the example collective security failed in Iraq 2003, then right to protect invoked in Libya in 2011, but it is criticized for regime change misuse कि यूएस ने इसको misuse किया था regime change करने के लिए. Clear? And lastly, you can write a conclusion that both the concepts, collective security and right to protect, they actually show the evolution for global security norms, but selective application undermines the credibility. Now, next question, that is third question, last part. Global South sensitive model of globalization would prevent the danger emanating from over centralized globalization. Discuss. Now, first of all, why this question is asked? You have to link this question with globalization debates. Here you can mention about Stiglitz, Amartya Sen with South cooperation. Okay, South cooperation. So here you can mention about multipolarity. So how you are going to write the introduction? Introduction में आपको क्या लिखना है? In introduction you can define globalization. Okay, you can define globalization. Then you can mention about it is something interconnected economy, culture as well as politics. Clear? But we have to note that over centralized globalization is dominated by global north institutions like IMF, World Bank, WTO and all. Clear? Then how are you going to write in the body of the answer? Problems of over centralization, dependency increase ho gayi hai, said by Gunder Frank. Then asymmetry is there, Susan Strange talks about structural power, neoliberal inequality mentioned by Stiglitz. Then what is global South sensitive model look like? So it is like greater voice in WTO, UN. Then alternative financial institutions are rising like BRICS Bank, New Development Bank, then Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, then South-South Cooperation, IPSA, G77, then Sustainable Development, talked by whom? It is mentioned by Amartya Sen, who talked about capability approach. Then examples you can mention like vaccine equity during COVID, debt relief demands, climate justice, so all these things you can mention in your answer. Then at last you can give a wonderful conclusion in these kind of questions. Now how you are going to conclude that for globalization to be stable, it must be inclusive and multipolar, not hegemonic in nature. Okay, so this is how you can write the conclusion. Then fourth part A, Latin America has made moderate success in countering US-led global economic order by forming various organizations, emphasizing regional sovereignty, economic integration and alternative development. So first of all, why this question is asked? Latin America's long struggle against the United States of America's hegemony. For example, Monroe Doctrine, Cold War era, then NAFTA, North America Free Trade Agreement, then neoliberalism. So basically UPSC wants to test your grips on dependency theory as well as regionalism. Then how you are going to write the introduction? Latin America historically seen as US backyard, but Latin America always attempts for autonomy. Okay, so these things you can mention like regional blocks, alternative development models, all these things. Then in body of the answer you can mention about various organizations, Mercosur 1991 economic integration, then ALBA, you can mention this is something which is anti-US alternative trade, then UNASUR and CELAC, that is related to regional sovereignty and it reduced OAS dependence. Okay, now alternative development models, Pink Tide 2000s, leftist government, Lula, Morales, So they started social spending, resisting IMF conditionalities. Then dependency theory, है ना, Rawl, Parrish and Cardoso, they actually criticized the US led cooperation model. The US led cooperation model is something which is hegemonic in nature, okay, and it is something exploitative in nature. Then moderate success. So successes, it has reduced the US dominance, but China has become a new partner now. China has become new partner as well as regional solidarity. But there are limitations like internal political instability, US sanction, then like US sanction in Venezuela, Cuba. So China is replacing US as a new hegemon. Clear? So here you can mention that Latin America actually achieved relative autonomy. ये word का जरूर use करिएगा. Relative autonomy, but not full independence. That means it is a challenge. So there is a challenge is to sustain sovereignty while avoiding the new dependencies. Clear? Then fourth B, how successful has the ASEAN plus 3 been in addressing regional problems? Support your answer with specific example. Now, why this question is asked? Now, first of all, let me tell you that with this question, UPSC wants to test the functionalism, neo-functionalism and complex interdependence. Clear? ASEAN plus 3, that is ASEAN plus China, Japan and South Korea. And this is also important for India's neighborhood and Indo-Pacific region. So in introduction, first of all, you can define ASEAN plus 3 approach. This approach came after Asian financial crisis in 1997. It is a kind of new mechanism of cooperation. Goal kya hai? Economic stability, security, dialogue, integration. So all these things you can mention. So regional forums आप mention कर सकते हैं, RCEP, security, discussion on North Korea, South China Sea, all these things you can mention easily here. है ना? So achievements, financial cooperation, economic limitations are there, like China is the limitation. है ना? China Japan rivalry blocks the deeper integration. Then ASEAN's principle of non-interference, it actually weakens with respect to the response in Myanmar region. Clear? Then South China Sea disputes, all these things you can mention. Again, here you can mention these scholars like Amitav Acharya, Kyohane Nai, complex interdependence, Amitav Acharya, ASEAN way, hai na? So these things which is based on consensus and other things. Now, section A, fourth question, last part. Trump's return to the White House is a jolt to push the European Union to invest in its own defense and economic technological revival. Now, how you are going to write this question? This year, Trump is re-elected as a president of United States of America. This is Trump's second term. And with this, you have to mention about EU contemporary strategic imperatives as well as relevant political theories. Clear? So basically, इस question में आपसे पूछा क्या गया है? This question actually tests your understanding the international relation transformation. That means the question actually draws from evolving transatlantic ties as well as geopolitical uncertainty which is created by the Trump's return to the White House. Clear? So these are the things which you can mention. So basically आप इस question में क्या करेंगे? In this question, you need to understand that Trump wants that European security, US appears less committed to the European security, calling for increased European defense spending in NATO also, as well as economic self-reliance. Clear? So आप contextual statement के साथ इस question को शुरू कर सकते हैं. Clear? Then in this kind of question, you can mention these scholars like Barry Buzan and Stanley Hoffman. Barry Buzan and Stanley Hoffman. Clear? So you can mention these kind of scholars. Clear? So try to decode the keywords in this question. Jolt, है ना? Invest. So Trump's return is something which is EU defensive and techno-economic push. Clear? Barry Buzan की आप security complex theory को यहाँ पर mention करिए. Then hedge theory of Europe strategic economy. Then you can also mention about John Ikenberry, liberal international order regarding the US retrenchment. Clear? Then you can quote your conclusion with Stanley Hoffman. Clear? So intergovernmentalism का concept दीजिए on EU cohesion under the external threats. Clear? So likewise you can attempt this question. So I hope section A is clear. All questions are clear. So now we are going to discuss section B. So now we are going to start paper 2 section B of PSIR optional, which is related to international relations, that is India and the world. So let's try to understand what are the different types of questions that UPSC has asked in PSIR this year in mains examination. Now, before starting this section B, I would like to tell one thing, and that is for this section, that is section B, current affairs are important. And students, they should approach each question by explaining the context of the question, then integrating the factual or you can say the factual developments, and then you can apply the relevant IR theories also, citing the key scholars as well as critically evaluate the core arguments. Because higher marks requires the structure, proper structure. Your introduction should be proper, and if you're going to analyze, so analysis with evidence should be there as well as scholar should be there. Then some new aspect should be there. These things should reflect in your answer, as well as balanced conclusions are important. Now, fifth question, which is again divided into 5 parts, that means short notes, 10 marker each. Now, fifth question, part A. Now, here as you can see the question, China's growing footprint and a tangible shift in power dynamics in Bangladesh has weakened India's leverage in Dhaka, full stop, comment. Now, this question. Now, first of all, why this question is asked? Why? What is the demand of this question? See, this question actually tests your understanding of contemporary regional geopolitics. It is something which is related to contemporary regional geopolitics. Fine. Now, especially contemporary regional geopolitics with respect to South Asia, and because in South Asia there is evolving power balance. So actually it probes India's strategic concerns over China's economic, political as well as defensive investments in Bangladesh. And this question also asks candidates to assess implication for India's influence. So how to write this answer? What should be the approach? So first you are going to write a wonderful introduction, है ना? तो आप इसमें क्या लिखेंगे? You have to briefly, with respect to introduction. So in this, you have to brief the China's context. Remember this thing. Briefly or brief the China's rapid rise in Bangladesh. Okay, rapid rise in Bangladesh. Then you can also refer various IR theories. कौन कौन सी theories? अब theory से पढ़ने के लिए नहीं होती, you have to apply. You can mention the IR theories like balance of power, as well as complex interdependence. As you can see here, complex interdependence theory. Okay, so these are the theory you can mention here. Then how to write body of the answer? As you can see here, body. So you can have to analyze China as Bangladesh's largest trading partner and military supplier. Then you have to cite the facts like BNS, Sheikh Hasina submarine base and arms deals. These are the facts. Then you can mention the key events. Teesta Water Project, infrastructure investment under BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, port upgradation. So these things actually signify the shift. Then the resultant strategic dilemma for India and reduce leverage in Dhaka's with respect to decision making. Then you can refer various important scholars here जिनके editorial आते हैं newspaper में खासकर. For example, you can refer the scholars like Lalufar Yasmin, C. Raja Mohan, wonderful scholar with respect to geopolitics, wonderful scholar. And you can mention about the theories of regional balancing as well as you can say mention realism, है ना? तो ये सारी जो theories हैं ये आप mention कर सकते हैं. Then how to write the conclusion? So at last, how you are going to conclude? Summarize the consequences. Clear? Summarize the consequences and then underline the need for India's recalibrated approach. Clear? And then briefly mention that the fluidity of regional alignments. So these are the things that you can write in your conclusion. Clear? Now next question. Next question is, would you agree with the contention that India's inclination to lean on more aggressive, hyper-realist posture has gained a new momentum in the aftermath of Pahalgam terrorist strike? Full stop comment. Now this question is related to current affairs. This year in April, Pahalgam attack took place and after that India took action in the name of Operation Sindoor. है ना? First, why this question is asked? So let me tell you, this question actually talks about, or you can say, this probes the evolution of India's security strategy. है ना? India's security strategy. Now, with respect to post-terrorism, India की security strategy क्या है? Post-terrorism में, that you have to highlight, and then you have to mention the landmark events like Pahalgam attack, because the context is related to Pahalgam. So you have to write in the context of Pahalgam attack. That means this question tests your understanding of realism in international relations. Clear? This is basically related to realism in IR. Okay? Now, how you are going to write the introduction? तो introduction कैसे लिखेंगे? Approach क्या होना चाहिए? First thing you have to mention, contextualize hyper realism. In introduction, you have to mention hyper realism. That means, what is hyper realism? It is referring to a policy shift towards assertive and militarized responses. So this is something which is related to assertive and militarized responses. Okay, this is how you have to write the introduction. Now, body of the answer. Let's try to understand body of the answer. Now, first thing, you can use facts on Operation Sindoor and India's cross-border retaliation. Then you can cite realist scholars here like Hans Morgenthau, his national interest theory. Then you can mention about John Mersheimer's offensive realism. These theories you can mention. Clear? You have to apply these theories. Then you can analyze the shift from strategic restraint to the proactive deterrence. And in this, you can also mention the nuclear deterrence debate. Clear? So these things you can easily write in your body of the answer. Clear? Then conclusion. how to write conclusion? So in this you have to weigh the effectiveness and risk. So you have to weigh the effectiveness as well as risk. Okay. Then you can also mention in your conclusion that India's need to balance global image with internal security priorities. See, this is how you can write your conclusion. Now, next question. For India, a multipolar world order would also mean a multipolar Asia. Full stop comment. So why this question is asked? See, this question actually examines India's strategic vision. This actually examines India's strategic vision. Now, India's strategic vision as the global order diversities, and you have to give the special reference to Asian dynamics. Okay. So, how to write introduction? In introduction, what you have to write? So first you have to define the multipolarity. पहले क्या डिफाइन करोगे? Multipolarity, and then its Asian significance. This you have to mention. Then how to write body of the answer? As you can see here, in body of the answer, you have to mention you have to discuss India's advocating for multi-alignment approach, engaging with Quad also, SCO also, as well as BRICS also. On the other hand, you have to mention various scholars like again C. Raja Mohan's perspective on Asian power diffusion. Then you can highlight the multipolar Asia. Multipolar Asia prevents the hegemony, especially by China, and this is going to promote India's strategic space. So these are the things that you can mention. Clear? Now, with respect to conclusion, so in this you can stress opportunity. है ना? You have to mention the opportunity as well as complexity. Complexity किसके लिए? For India. For India. These things you can mention. Then here there is a need for balanced diplomacy. So balanced diplomacy needed. Okay. These are the things which you can mention in your conclusion. Next question is, does non-alignment movement have any future in the wake of India's growing indifference towards it? This question. Now, first of all, why this question is asked? Let me tell you that this question challenging these students to explore India's foreign policy, and this question also wants that you need to explore India's foreign policy paradigm shift. Paradigm shift. Now, paradigm shift with respect to from NAM ideals to multi alignment pragmatism. This is the demand. You have to mention the shift from NAM ideals to multi-alignment or to pragmatic multi-alignment approach. Now, how to write this answer? What should be your approach? है ना? So, सबसे पहले introduction. Now, what you are going to write in the introduction? So, briefly mention NAM's Cold War. है ना? Cold War era mention करिए. Then you can mention India as a founding member. So these things you have to mention. Then body of the answer, you have to note that India's reduced NAM participation now. Clear? Here you can mention the S. Jaishankar and non-alignment 2.0 rationales. These things you have to mention. Then it can also include the critiques like Harsh V. Pant, है ना, इनके एडिटोरियल भी आते हैं द हिंदू में, हर्ष वी पंत. Then S. Kalyan Raman, his views are also important. So you can mention these people, these scholars, है ना, and those who see value in soft power and South-South cooperation. तो ये आसानी से आप लिख सकते हैं और NAM का हर साल एक क्वेश्चन आता ही आता है. Clear everyone? Okay. Then at last, conclusion. So in conclusion, you can argue that NAM is still relevant. Clear? Just like in Hinduism, we say na, that body dies but soul remains. Similarly, NAM also, though the relevance of NAM, or you can say the physical presence of NAM is actually no more, but still its values, its norms are still there. So today NAM still represents a global South forum. It represents a global South forum. You can mention these things in your conclusion. Clear? And its utility for India is now selective and pragmatic in nature. Then last part of fifth question. Historical ties between India and Japan grew into a special strategic and global partnership. Comment. Why this question is asked? First of all, this question evaluates contemporary bilateral partnership in global and Indo-Pacific context. Now, how to approach question? है ना? First, how you are going to write the introduction. So, introduction कैसे लिखेंगे? So here you can trace the ties of India and Japan, historical roots बताइए, to 2014. Clear? And in 2014 the ties were upgrade to special strategic and global partnership. Special strategic and global partnership. These are the things you can mention. Then body of the answer. Then you can use facts like 2+2 dialogue, very important mechanism, Indo-Pacific strategy, Quad, technology as well as developmental cooperation. Then you can also refer PM Shinzo Abe, former PM Shinzo Abe, Indo-Pacific vision as well as Indian diplomats. And then you can explain the strategic, economic and cultural synergy between both the nations. So this is how you can write a wonderful answer. And then at last you can mention about in your conclusion that still the relations are cordial between India and Japan based on innovation, power balance, Indo-Pacific, mutual interest derive the deepening engagement. So these are the things which you can mention. Now sixth question. Now long questions. So first part, critically analyze the different phases of India's foreign policy since independence. How justified do you think is S. Jaishankar classification of current phase as energetic diplomacy? So Jaishankar once in 2019, he gave his speech and where he mentioned that there are 6 phases in India's foreign policy and currently the 6th phase is going on which is called as energetic diplomacy. Okay. Now, first of all, why this question is asked? This question actually tests the understanding of the evolution, motivation and current thrust of India's foreign policy. Now, what should be the approach for this question? Introduction kaise likhenge? So, you can briefly mention that India's foreign policy has undergone many changes. Clear? Has undergone many changes, many transitions, which actually reflect what? Changing global as well as domestic realities. Getting my point? Domestic reality. Now, in body of the answer, you can mention the phases. Like first phase is Nehruvian phase 47 to 62, which was known for idealism. Okay, that is ideals of non-alignment, South-South solidarity. But it has exposed these strategic vulnerabilities like 1962 China War. Then comes second phase of realism and regional assertion. This is from 1962 to 1991. Regional realism and regional assertion. In this period, India was closer to USSR, 1971 treaty. You can mention assertion during Bangladesh liberation, 1971 nuclear test, Pokhran 1, that is Operation Smiling Buddha. Then sanctions on post-nuclear test. 1991, India faced significant change. That is change in economy, that is LPG, liberalization and pragmatism in post-1991, and world order shifted from post-Cold War. And new foreign policies came like Look East policy, trade, technology, and multi-directional engagement. Okay. In 2000s, multi-alignment and assertive diplomacy was started. Outcome के strategic autonomy is still there. US nuclear deal, balancing China, engagement with G20, BRICS, Quad, etc. Then you can mention about Jaishankar's energetic diplomacy, current phase. So where he mentioned this phase is actually active, high frequency, multi-vector outreach like Quad, Indo-Pacific frameworks, candid on national interest also. Then proactive in global governance. So here you can mention these scholars like C. Raja Mohan, S. Jaishankar, etc. So these are the things which you can mention in your answer. Clear? Now, how to write a wonderful conclusion. So what you can do here in this type of question, you can evaluate. Hai na? So you can just mention that the phrase is justified as this period shows the unprecedented activism, but there are constraints like resource gaps as well as regional flashpoints. Now, what are the scholars that you can mention in this? Here you can mention Stephen Cohen, then श्रीनाथ राघवन के बारे में आप मेंशन कर सकते हैं, then David Malone, S. Jaishankar, C. Raja Mohan, all these scholars you can mention in your answer. Now, sixth question, B part. India maintains strong ties with countries that will assure a free and open Indo-Pacific and guarantee greater connectivity with the rest of the world. Analyze. Now, why this question is asked? This question actually tests the knowledge of India's Indo-Pacific strategy, connectivity initiatives, as well as evolving partnership की बात की जा रही है. Why? It is against the backdrop of China's assertiveness. Now, in introduction, how will you write? Introduction कैसे लिखेंगे? So here you have to mention India's commitment to free, open, है ना, Indo-Pacific. That you can mention in this question. Free, open Indo-Pacific as well as global connectivity. Then body of the answer. In body, you can mention about strategic partnerships with US, Japan, Australia, because all these are members of Quad. Then apart from this, France and ASEAN at the center. Then initiatives like Indo-Pacific Ocean Initiative, India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor, then climate or blue economy leadership at IORA. All these things you can mention here. Then at last, you can mention about the connectivity, that India's focus is on physical, that is ports, corridors, है ना? Digital, India's focus is also digital, that is digital public infrastructure model, as well as disaster resilience. At last, in conclusion, how you are going to write? In conclusion, you can do the analysis. अब analysis कैसे करेंगे? That India balances major power ties. You can mention India balances major power ties and regional consensus. Okay, regional consensus. Then engagement is both functional, that is trade and security, normative also, that is rule based, order or sustainability. Now, what are the key scholars that you can mention? Very important scholars like Harsh V. Pant. You can mention former ambassador Rajiv Bhatia. Then you can mention C. Raja Mohan. You can mention these scholars here. Okay. Now, sixth question, last part. The tariff threats have pushed India and European Union closer. Evaluate India-EU partnership. Important question. Now, first of all, let me tell you that this question assesses the ability to evaluate the contemporary drivers, challenges, as well as future direction in India-EU relations, especially economic and strategic aspect. Now, how are you going to write the introduction? So, introduction कैसे लिखेंगे? See, in this you can mention, first of all, recent tariff threats or frictions, है ना? You can mention about recent tariff threats or frictions that brought India and European Union closer, clear, to lessen dependence on other blocs. Clear? Now, how to write body of the answer? You can mention strategic partnership between India and EU since 2004, then roadmap of 2025, then annual summits. Then you can mention about trade and technology. Foreign trade agreement negotiations are going on. Digital data security, green economy. Then this India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor for connectivity. Then you can mention about non-trade elements like Erasmus, then climate collaboration, diaspora engagement. Clear? Erasmus one, they also promote people to people contact. Clear? People to people relations, student visa. Clear? Then both hedging against the US and China uncertainty, that is India and European Union. Then at last you can mention the various challenges, है ना? Challenges क्या आप लिख सकते हैं? For example, regulatory divergence. So you can also write the challenges like regulatory divergence. Clear? Slow negotiation, different strategic culture. And you can mention various scholars here like Shashi Tharoor, Harsh V. Pant. So you can mention all these scholars. Clear? Now next question, 7th. A part, India continues to invoke its time-tested policy of strategic autonomy, clear, both US and Russia, by rejecting US offer of mediation on Kashmir issue and by refusing to criticize Russia in its ongoing war against Ukraine. बहुत ही ज्यादा न्यूज में था. Clear? So this is something which is related to India's multi-alignment and autonomy doctrine. It is related to India's multi-alignment and autonomy doctrine. Clear? In global order. Then you can, so what should be the approach? First, you can introduce your answer in introduction. You can define strategic autonomy. You have to define strategic autonomy. That is India's ability to pursue national interests independently. Then body of the answer, you can mention about US Kashmir, that India actually rejected the US mediation maintaining the bilateral Shimla Agreement principle, and that reaffirms the sovereignty as well as autonomy. Then you can mention about Russia, Ukraine. India abstained from UN votes and did not criticize Russia. So here India continued energy and defense ties with Russia, which reflect the pragmatic autonomy against the Western countries' pressure. Then you can mention various theories. You can link to realist multi-alignment, that is C. Raja Mohan, hedging strategy, which is given by Kara. Clear? Then you can give the justification also. What is the justification? So let me tell you, autonomy allows India to balance US or West and also retain Russian support with respect to arms, United Nations Security Council veto. Clear? Then at last, you can give various scholars in your conclusion, like C. Raja Mohan आप mention कर सकते हैं. Clear? So you can mention various scholars like C. Raja Mohan, S. Jaishankar. Clear? इनको भी आप मेंशन कर सकते हैं. Then you can mention about Nishant Rajiv. So these are some important scholars. Sunil Kilnani. All these are important scholars. Then next question. Trump's unilateral imposition of reciprocal tariffs on scores of countries poses impending threat to the future of rule-based multilateral global trading system under WTO. What option do WTO members have to salvage the organization? अब ये क्वेश्चन डायनेमिक है थोड़ा सा. This actually assess the knowledge of global trade governance. There is crisis in multilateralism and there is a need for reform options in frame WTO. Now, सबसे पहले हम इंट्रोडक्शन में क्या लिखेंगे? You have to mention how Trump's tariff है ना bypass WTO norms. So in introduction, you have to mention how Trump tariffs bypassed WTO norms. So when we say Trump tariffs, है ना, you have to mention national security, reciprocity. So these are the things bypassed WTO norms, and this is actually endangering the rule-based trade. Clear? Now, how to write body of the answer? Body, WTO dispute settlement body is actually paralyzed, है ना? That is appellate body blocked. Second, you can mention the options. First, revive the dispute system. That is plurilateral interim appeal. Clear? Plurilateral interim appeal. Then second, reform the rules on digital trade services. Then state subsidies to reflect the new realities. Then use plurilateral coalition governments for forward this you can say movement. Clear? Then strengthen monitoring, enforcement as well as transparency. इन सभी चीजों की जरूरत है. And with respect to conclusion, you can give a wonderful analysis. Clear? Conclusion में आप क्या लिख सकते हैं? That in this, so with respect to conclusion, you can mention in your answer that collective action is vital, है ना, despite US resistance. So these are the things you can mention. Then global economic interdependence requires a robust WTO. Okay, तो यहां पर आप स्कॉलर्स मेंशन कर सकते हैं. रॉबर्ट वॉल्फ, scholars like Robert Wolf, Jagdish Bhagwati. So these are the scholars which you can mention here. Then last part of seventh question, again non-alignment. Non-alignment 2.0 underscores India's unique aspiration to emerge as a site for alternative universality. Comment. This question actually tests the conceptual depth about India's foreign policy, ideology in post-Western and multipolar world. Now, how to write introduction first of all? अब इस क्वेश्चन का हमें इंट्रोडक्शन कैसे लिखना है? Here you can mention non-alignment 2.0. It was given in 2012 and ये किसने दिया था? मेहता and Menon. Clear? So in this you can mention मेहता, Menon, खिलनानी, है ना? मेहता, Menon, Khilnani, all these important scholars. They gave a blueprint for India's grand strategy in 21st century. Now, how to write body of the answer? In body, you have to redefine the autonomy. That it is not something which is called as isolation. It is proactive engagement to shape the global norms. Then you can mention it envisions India as a bridge between North and South, and it also promotes fairness, sustainability, pluralism, and digital innovation. Then alternative universality. इसमें आप क्या लिखेंगे? You can explain by saying this that India offers a non-hegemonic, inclusive global narrative, which is alternative to both Western liberalism as well as authoritarian models. Then you can mention about key areas of cooperation like economic growth, digital governance like Aadhaar, climate justice, and South-South cooperation. Clear? Now, what are these scholars that you can mention? You can mention these scholars: Pratap Bhanu Mehta, Sunil Khilnani, Shyam Sharan. All these scholars you can mention. Then last part, eighth question, A. India's reluctance to perceive any existential threat inevitably made multilateral path to nuclear security a default option until it decided to cross nuclear Rubicon in 1998. Identify and analyze some of the major reasons behind this shift in India's position on the nuclear question. This question is actually related to India's nuclear policy shift until 1998. Simple way में इस तरीके से समझो. So this question actually examines India's evolving nuclear posture and also highlighting why it moved from multilateralism to overt nuclearization in 1998. Clear? Now, how to write the introduction? अब इस क्वेश्चन का इंट्रोडक्शन कैसे लिखेंगे? सिंपल सी चीज है. You have to mention, you have to begin with India's initial commitment to peaceful nuclear use and the multilateral preference, which is rooted in Nehruvian idealism. Then you can mention about the body. Now, in body of the answer, first you have to mention the security threats. Emergence of China as a nuclear power in 1964, then subsequent nuclearization of Pakistan, which altered India's strategic culture, जिसने इंडिया के स्ट्रैटेजिक कल्चर को पूरी तरीके से बदल दिया, है ना, और कैलकुलेशन को बदल दिया. क्लियर? Second, you can mention failure of global disarmament regime, NPT failure. Then comprehensive test ban treaty is also a failure. So these treaties view as discriminatory as well as disillusionment with multilateral non-proliferation efforts. Then you can mention about symbolic and status aspiration. Now here the desire, है ना, desire for the recognition as a global power, which actually drove nuclearization. Here you can mention these scholars like Ashley Tellis, Sagan and Wald's debate. Then technological advances like indigenous capacity and successful tests. These things they have made weaponization feasible. Then you can mention about regional and domestic factors, that security concerns started after 1971 and growing debates on national security. Then overall you can mention a wonderful conclusion that crossing the nuclear Rubicon, this actually affirmed the strategic autonomy and India retained a responsible nuclear power, you can say. That is no first use and credible minimum deterrence. Okay. Then next question, 8th B. Discuss some of the key drivers of India's new interest in Africa, which might help in developing long-term comparative advantage over China. So this actually talks about the India-Africa relations or India-Africa engagement dynamics. This is related to India-Africa engagement dynamics. Okay, that how India distinguishes itself, and versus China approach you can mention. Now, first of all, how to write introduction. Introduction कैसे लिखना है? You have to highlight the shift, है ना? Highlight the shift from historical solidarity to proactive engagement now. Clear? As well as multifaceted partnership. These things you can mention. Now, how to write body of the answer? In this, you can mention economic diversification, access to markets, resources के लिए जरूरत है अफ्रीका की, as well as energy security. That is why there is a focus on Africa program, greenfield investments, etc. Then knowledge diplomacy. For this, ITEC is there, affordable medicines, digital public goods like UPI, vaccine, Maitri, and all these initiatives are taken in Africa. Then diaspora and cultural links. Deep Indian diaspora networks which aid people to people ties as well as business relations. Then strategic balancing. Now, India is seen as a less hegemonic partner compared to China, which emphasizing on partnership and non-interference as well as South-South cooperation. Then democratic model, supporting local agency unlike China's infrastructure-led and state-centric approach. Clear? Overall, you can conclude your answer by saying that India's approach leverages historic trust, technology, inclusivity, as well as potentiality in creating a sustainable comparative advantage over China. So these are the things that you can mention. Now, last question, that is discuss the potential role India can play in initiating a possible phase trilateral economic engagement among India, China and Nepal. Now, first of all, this question actually tests student grasp of regional trilateralism opportunities, especially India's possible mediating and integrative role. Then, how you are going to write? So, in introduction, with respect to India and Nepal, you can give an overview. आप overview दे सकते हैं of shared geography. Okay, overview of shared geography and intersecting interest between all the three countries. Now, how you are going to write the body of the answer? Connectivity. India can lead multimodal transport corridors, which can integrate Nepal transit potential to connect Chinese and South Asian market. Second, what India can do? Trade facilitation. Using open border and logistic expertise, India can help Nepal in reducing dependence and benefit from triangulated flows. Then conflict mitigation. You can mention here also. So development cooperation and conflict mitigation. Development cooperation कैसे? Like joint projects in hydropower, tourism, then agribusiness, which exploiting the complementary strength. Then with respect to conflict mitigation, India's historical ties, like linguistic, cultural affinity, and Nepal's resilience on India for, you can say, the transit position as natural bridge. So overall, you can mention or you can conclude your answer by saying India's proactive strategy, है ना? That is India's proactive or inclusive approach. Inclusive approach you can mention. So in this way, India can unlock the regional win-win while mitigating geopolitical rivalries. Clear? Now, what are the scholars that you can mention here? Scholars like C. Raja Mohan. यहां पर भी आप सी राजा मोहन, सुधीर शर्मा, clear, on South Asian connectivity. Then C. Raja Mohan talked about trilateralism. So these are the scholars that you can mention. So overall, we have completed all the questions, discussions with respect to PSIR paper 1, which is already done, paper 2, which is now completed. I hope that you are able to understand the demand of UPSC in optional paper. So I wish you all the best for your future. Thank you so much.